All right, we've got some awesome people here already. Yay! I see Kathy, Megan, Christine. Let me turn this to gallery. All right. I see. I think that's Jeannie, but it's Jeannie and me. Jeannie, something like that. Yeah, Jeannie. We've got Valma. We've got Chris. No, is Sterling Christine, or is it Jordan again? We've got Grace. We've got Megan. We've got Christine. I see Christine. So that must be Sterling is Jordan. So okay, we've got Laura. Is it Laura's or is it Laura? Just double checking. No, it's not. It's totally you, Jordan. Awesome. Okay, so let me just make sure that William has the right link that he can get on and everything. It is running. Let me know. All right. Will I am? No, it's not. Okay. No, it's William Glass, and he's here, guys. I'm so excited. I'm going to ask William to start video if he's okay with that. You don't have to feel like you have to look great. I don't, but it's been a crazy couple of days. So I am going to change it to speaker view now that we know that there are people here. And
hey.
Hi, William. How are you?
How are you?
So good. How are you?
Outstanding.
Let me see if I can make both of us spotlighted. I don't think I can. Is it okay if I spotlight you?
I don't mind. Whatever you want.
Happy Thursday.
Same to you.
Okay, let me just make sure everyone is good. Oh, it is Jeannie. Okay, perfect. Let's see. Everyone is saying hi in the chat. Looks like people aren't doing video today since we had a video call already this week and everyone got to see each other's faces. And so it's you and me on video. I might turn my video off at some point, so it's going to be you. Okay, guys, so as you're starting to pour in, I just want to give William a little bit of an intro. I first got to know William on, do you go by Will or William?
Whatever you want. I get called everything.
Perfect. Not Will I am, like Jordan's saying in the chat, but
I won't refuse it.
William is awesome. I was first connected with him on Instagram, and he turned one of my quotes into a really cool graphic, and I thought that was awesome. And now looking back, I realized too, he was also doing research with it and figuring out how people reacted to something. I have theories about what you were testing in particular, which is kind of fun. But basically, guys, the reason I'm so excited to have William, a couple of you actually requested that I have him in a masterclass, because what William does that is unreal is he's able to look at social media and figure out not just like what's being done, but why it's being done. And when I read his piece on Medium, I was blown away. My husband was blown away. We were like, this man was like inside of my brain, and I didn't even know him, and that's the craziest part. But he was able to read through, my social media posts and read between the lines and find out the trends that were going on. So if you guys have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to have everyone not chime in with questions vocally until the end, just so that he's able to start talking. Unless, of course, people are taking too long to type, then I'll be like, okay, just chime in. So I just was absolutely blown away by what William's doing. And are you calling it social hacking?
Yeah. That's
okay.
The idea.
So social hacking is what he did to my social media, and it's so cool. So I guess I'd love for you to just kind of introduce yourself to everybody and explain to us like how you got to where you are with social hacking. It's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep it brief too. So I've been running an SEO agency for a little over a year now, and realized about the beginning of this year that all the main drivers for the success of my SEO clients were social. So their biggest traffic sources were from Facebook and Twitter and things like that. And so I knew eventually I was going to have to get into this, and was a little bit reluctant just because I knew that like once you go down that rabbit hole, you're down for good. I mean, there's an unending list of things to know once you start getting into social media. And probably most of you in here know more about that even than I do. But once I do make up my mind to go learn something, I kind of go all in, and you can probably see that. So what I want to do is I don't want to waste time.
Yep.
And so when I see somebody successful, I want to know everything about them. When, I read biographies of people who've done the things I want to do. I look for every clue, because I think that the neat thing about success in the social media age is that it happens in public. So you're able to trace, if you're careful and if you know what to look for, you're able to trace what's going on. So what I wanted to do is figure out how to grow my own social media presence. And then I wanted to do that for and with my SEO clients and others. And the easiest way I could see to do that was to find somebody who's doing it really well and learn everything I could about the way they were doing it. So that's where social hacking came from.
I think that is so cool. Okay, so for starters, I want to say it's really cool that you're in SEO, because not many people are doing SEO well. It's a long-term strategy. But the funny thing too is that social media is sometimes considered to be like a short-term or a quick fix.
Mm-hmm.
And in reality, it's similar. It's something that takes a long time. You have to build up, put in the work, everything. Let me hop into the questions. Geraldine's so excited. She was one of the people who specifically requested that we have you as a guest. And so I know she's as pumped as I am to kind of pick your brain and figure out how in the world did you get started with this? And
yeah, that's very kind.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then Jordan says, so you were investigating Rachel for her skills.
Yeah, that's it. So really quickly, you don't just go find any old person. So here's the way I kind of settled on Rachel. What Rachel remembers back to me reaching out with a quote card that I made for her, which, as she's absolutely right was a test. But, I was actually following her for a time before that, both on Twitter and on Instagram. And I just had a huge list of people I was following. And the thing is, some people have been on Instagram since back in 11 and 12 and have 6,000-7,000 posts. There was no way I was going to be able to sort of get under the hood of a 7,000 post account. Rachel, amazingly, has been at this for, what I can tell, about 18 months seriously. And in that 18 months has done an amazing job. And so that's what I wanted to see. It was a success in a short time that would show you that it wasn't this person was a celebrity and then they brought a bunch of followers into Instagram. Hats off to Gary Vaynerchuk, but if you have 1 million followers on Twitter and you start promoting your Instagram and you don't suck, you're going to get a lot of followers on Instagram. Rachel, I know, brought some audience in over from Facebook, but you can see when you look at the actual history of the posts, you can see as the posts are getting better, the engagement is going up. As she gains fluency in the kind of medium Instagram is, then the response gets better. And that's what I wanted to see. So I was looking for that account. So the short answer is yes, for her skills. The long answer is for her skills and a window of time that I could actually manage in my little brain. So yeah.
I think that's absolutely awesome. And it is kind of funny because I still remember the day that I decided that I wanted my Instagram to do well. I was working at the tech company and somebody said that and Moshe, yes, he is the one who wrote the Medium article. And Moshe read it and I thought it was so cool. He was like, wait, so I think he asked, so you paid this guy to do it? No, I don't even know him. Isn't that crazy cool? Okay, so I remember there was a day where I was like, people are using Instagram and growing really big followings, and I don't see why I can't. My life isn't that cool, but how can I capture the life around me and make it, as cool as possible and show people what that looks like? And literally you highlighted some of those posts around the time that I was like, I'm going to figure this out,
Right.
I figured out Instagram. So I thought that was really cool. You were able to see the day those gears started turning in my head.
Right. And for me, it's I could try to go out and figure it all out myself. Oh, that's funny. I see in the chat window, no black eyed peas.
I know.
I could go try to figure this out myself, or I could find someone who had figured it out and shortcut. And the neat thing about having a business, which is not true in the world I come from, which like before I got into business, I was in the academy. So I was in like, you know, a PhD program doing university stuff. And in this world versus in that one, it's totally cool to look on other people's paper. So I just said, well, forget me. I'm not going to try to figure it out. I'm going to find someone else who did and see what they did. And you can see right about the time where Rachel starts to figure it out is she figures out that Instagram is a storytelling medium. And this is the most important thing to say is that Instagram is a storytelling medium by photos. So it's not, I think a lot of people with Instagram who are sort of confused about how to grow their following, they think that Instagram is a place to store photos where you don't have to write a lot, you know, or sort of something like that. And what you don't realize is that because of the way Instagram displays photos, it creates a story. And I'm pulling up my phone real quick just so you know, you can see the grid is what really makes a story out of it. When you see the grid, it allows you to follow post by post by post. And so what Rachel figured out is, and this is what was really made the piece so much fun to write, because like I learned all this as I was studying Rachel. Like I didn't know it and then go look for somebody. Like I was following Rachel and saying, what is she doing? And she figured out that the story is a human story. Like she's the character in the story of her Instagram, and people are following her to see what happens in the life of that character. But if you only tell a story where all you do is describe the character, then it's going to be an uninteresting story. So there has to be some action. There has to be some enemies. There has to be some drama that you overcome. And Rachel figured this out about 18 months ago. And from then her following skyrocketed. And that's not an accident. It's because people want that story. And the way to really kill it is to tell a story that connects with other people's stories. So in Rachel's case, it's some of you guys read the piece, so you'll know this already. But it was the person, it was the woman in a testosterone fueled business world succeeding and insisting on remaining like a woman. And so I'm not gonna eliminate all the things that make me a woman just to succeed in this world. I think I can succeed on my own terms. And that connects with a deep aspiration that a lot of women have. And that's why it's been successful. So seeing that's what I want. But for me, that's what I learned. And that's what I'm sharing with people is that if you want to succeed in Instagram, learn your story. Like, what is your origin story? Who are the bad guys? Who's the drama? What are you overcoming? And when you do that, then it's just a matter of sort of pointing and shooting the camera in a way that tells the story so your audience can follow it. I hope that helps.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it. Okay, let's see. Megan asked, who else have you social hacked, or who are your top social hacks?
Yeah. So, you know, when I did before I did the one for Rachel, I kind of announced in Medium series that I was going to do these. And I think I said I was going to do them once a week. I had no idea how much work they would take. So, you know, so I've got several in progress, but haven't finished any, in part because once this happened, through that Medium series, a lot of people have contacted me and wanted to hire me to look into their Instagrams and do very similar things. So just a small digression, a plug for working for free. I did this for Rachel, barely knowing her. I think I contacted her one time before, as she said, to kind of like just, hand off a quote card. And as she will probably tell you, I was putting a theory to the test. I took a quote card of hers from a former picture where she's standing like at a pier and looking out over like a lake or something. I don't know, Minnesota, you people have all those lakes. And so I added a quote from her Twitter to that picture, like on Photoshop, and then sent it to her. And, you know, it was very kind of her. She posted it, and I watched the engagements. And it confirmed a theory that I had, which is that Rachel's audience loves her story but they connect with her most strongly when she sets them up with a few posts and then like shows a picture, right, just of her whole face. That's what they love.
Mm-hmm.
And so the picture that I sent, her face is turned away and the engagement was a little low. And so that's when I sort of like learned that I was on the right track. And that's when I decided, okay, now I can publish this thing. I pretty much got it. So that's all I'll say. I did all that for free. And what it's done is both, it's given me a relationship with Rachel that she's been on my podcast show. It's been really great. But also people who've seen that have hired me.
Wow. Doing
work on the front side for free is a lot of talk about that's bad these days. And all I can say is it's been worth it for me. So social hacks. Yeah, there's a lot more coming, but they're all taking a little longer because there's a little bit less time to work with. But I will basically the next couple are going to be some people of more or less Rachel's size. Nobody really. One of the neat things about these Instagram communities is that you can have a 20,000 person Instagram community and nobody outside that community knows who you are. So everybody on Instagram knows who Gary Vaynerchuk is because his posts come up in the top posts on Instagram all the time. Rachel has close to 20,000 followers and nobody knows who she is, who's not in that. So anyway, the point is stick around and I'll make sure whenever those series get published, I'll let you guys know. And then you can go see the other ones too.
That's so cool. I'll make sure that we have some follow-ups so everybody can see what's coming up next. Jeannie asks, what is the one thing all successful people are doing?
I would say I'm about to give you guys what I think is great news. I mean, it's funny because like I'm still grinding, right? So like many of you guys might even be sort of ahead of me. Like I'm still building a company and an agency from the ground. And so we're a little bit off the ground now, but we're not remotely where Rachel is. So I'll say, but as somebody who studies successful people and implements what they do, I can say this, and this is good news. There is no one thing that all successful people are doing. There are a million recipes for success. Even if you were to identify these common traits as people really like often do, all successful people have drive. Well, I mean, sort of, but like that's so vague as to be meaningless. Like, yeah. Some people have drive. I mean, and they work 4 hours a week and they're really brilliant about leveraging their time and other people. And so that doesn't have to be like a whole life. And some people drive means they never stop working. So I don't think there is a one thing. I think, to point to Rachel's success, which is what I really want to do here is say the thing that's going to make you successful is finding out what makes you something that lots of other people want to be. And I think that's really difficult for a lot of us because we think, why would anybody want to be me? I mean, what do I have? And I think that's just a sort of like limiting belief that you have. I mean, if you are a human and you are in Rachel's Facebook community, it means that a lot of things have happened in your life so that you are already winning the lottery in the whole history of human beings. And so cultivating a kind of sense for your own distinction and appreciating it enough to think other people might like that too. Then it's just a matter of finding who those people are and getting the message there. And we can talk about some of those that's technical, and we can talk about that later. Rachel figured that out about 18 months ago, started hashtagging in a particular way, and bang. So she was able to, once she figured out what her story was, she figured out who would want to hear it. And then she went out and just put those together, and that's it.
Awesome. Jordan asked for the article. I shared it. And then just so you know, it only works on your phone on Medium in the app.
Yep, that's right. I've had a lot of questions about that. People say, why did you do this on the Medium series? Because all you can do is look at it on your phone. I think I would say, the majority of people who look at Medium or who do anything on social media do it on their phone. So it's okay. That's not a problem for me. That was a risk I always want to take. The second thing, though, is that format is outstanding because it allows you, it basically runs like a book. It stores it on Medium. So you can kind of read a few pages, put it away, get distracted, the kids yell at you, and then you come back and you pick up where you left off. So, yeah.
good question. Geraldine asked, did you have a special grid to read her IG account and find out the markers of success? Or did you start from scratch and then you found out about the main points?
That's a good question. It is the other way. Yeah, it's exactly the first way. I just sort of started basically what I realized is like I followed Rachel enough to realize she was interesting. Which is to say, I think I started following her around late January, early February, and found out, yeah, this is somebody who's really doing it right. And the only way I knew that she was doing it right is she had 20,000 followers, and I had at the time 75. So it's like, I mean, just as a story for you guys, I mean, I started the year with 75 Instagram followers, and you know, as I've been putting this, and really, I started March with only a little bit more than that. And it's really after I published the Medium thing, I decided to go put the things that I learned from that into practice for myself. And so in a month, I've gone from like 70 to close to 600, and that will grow more. But the more important thing is, and I think this is what I learned to answer the question and hopefully give you some value. What I learned from Rachel is, or what the identifying markers of success. When I was reading through, I basically, once I decided she was worth following, I went back to the beginning of her Instagram and just started reading post by post by post. And I know that sounds like really creepy and stalkerish, but the thing to say about that is I'm not stalking Rachel, I'm stalking success, and Rachel is successful. And so everything that she's going to let me know that's going to help me do better, I'm going to go do that. And in fact, I found a post somewhere in her Instagram where she was telling people in her Facebook group to like imitate what she had done. And so I felt, okay, she probably won't mind so much if I then go actually try to do that. But I watched likes and comments. That's what I watched for, because for me, I don't care. I mean, you can go buy 20,000 Instagram followers if you want. There's a lot of companies out there that will take your money and do this in a really shady way where they just sort of like blast you out to all over the world and offer people 2 cents to like you, whatever it is, you know. Don't bother with that. What mattered to me was that people were engaging with her. And when I saw growing signs of engagement, that's when I realized this is a sign of success. And so for me, right, in this month, I've jumped up to about 600 followers, but my most recent posts have 150 engagements. And so just so you know, the sort of standard book benchmark is if you've got thousands of followers, people are happy when they see 2% engagement. Businesses are happy when they see 2% engagement, 2% of your followers. And right now I'm close to 25. And that's because for me, I prioritize engagement. I don't care who follows me. I want to talk to people. I want to make friends because I know that making friends, as Rachel has done, is the way you make customers down the way, customers who care about you and are invested in you. So to answer the question, started back at the beginning, followed likes and comments. And when I saw big jumps in likes and comments, that was a sign for me to go back and see what had happened.
I love that. And one thing I do want to say too that's kind of interesting is I've gotten a lot less consistent on my Instagram, and I see it in my engagement. And that's kind of interesting. You know, now when I do a post, it takes a little bit for it to get to where I want it to be. And so I'm not focusing right now on engagement as much. It's more of like, okay, let's keep this story going. You know, I'm incredibly busy. I'd love to be as active on Instagram as those people who get, 20,000 likes or 10,000 likes or even 1,000 likes. But honestly, like at this point, it's about, can I connect with one person,
And I think too, I mean, we should say, I mean, you do this. I don't yet know how to do this when you've got 20,000 followers because I don't have them. I know how to do it at my space, at my stage. And so again, as I said, there's no one way to success. Yes. Rachel's there. Nobody gets to tell her what to do. I'm not there. So I'm letting everyone tell me what to do. I'm looking at everybody's signs. I'm looking at all the clues that anybody leaves and stalking all kinds of people to find out how they did it. So that I can imitate that success. Because here's the thing, and I think this is important to know. I've now sort of investigated well over 2,000 Instagram accounts, and the magic number is, Rachel's doing great on 20,000 Instagram followers, but that's because she's got a Facebook world that's also huge. So, you don't want to overlook that. But 100,000 Instagram followers and you don't need money for the rest of your life unless you're an idiot. I mean, that's what that's why this matters.
Mm-hmm.
You build connection. It's not about followers in general, but when you build a community of 100,000 people who are interested and invested in you, you don't need money anymore. And that's what, when, in terms of for me, I'm building an agency, but I know that like the best sign that I can do for a client, what I say I can do, is to have done it for myself. What physician, heal yourself is the old proverb, right? If you can't do it for you, then how can you do it for me? So, yeah.
That's so great. Since we're on the topic of engagement, I'm going to jump to this question. I have an answer to it as well, but I'd love to hear your answer as well, because I think everyone has a different outlook on it. But Jordan asked, the picture you did is the one of the pink dress. Yep, that's right. What about engagement ratios? I've been told that anything less than 10% is bad.
Yeah, I would say I learned this from Nathan Chan, who runs Founder Magazine and whose Instagram is astoundingly good. Again, if you go, here's the thing about Instagram, and we'll talk about this in a minute, because I hope that we can get a chance to talk about Rachel's viral post, and because that's where I really think I delivered all the value in the Medium piece, is showing how you build a viral post. But so I say all that to say, if you just go imitate what Nathan Chan is doing, you will not have his success. The reason is because a lot of it is under the hood. But secondly, he knows, as a magazine, he knows founders' place in a business owner's success. So you can't just go be a business owner, and get 1 million followers by putting up quote card after quote card. You have to know where you sit. You have to know what your actual story is. So, but that said, Nathan Chan has said that the basic, like the sort of benchmark level of engagement in the Instagram world, and what I've seen agrees with this, is about 2%.
Yep.
That's what most people experience. 2%. Mm-hmm. If you're under that, you're drastically doing it wrong. If you're getting 10% engagement, that's fantastic. And if you're getting 10% engagement and you've got 10,000 followers, then you're crushing it. What I also see is that as followers go up, your engagement ratios go down. That's unavoidable, because when people see a lot of people following someone, even if they're not that interested, they might want to signal that they're interested, so then they follow. And that's just the way social media works. When you draw a crowd, a bigger crowd gathers, and there will be levels in that crowd of people who are part of your core tribe.
Yep. Same thing, real fast, guys, goes on Facebook. I don't think the same thing applies to Twitter. I found that as your followers go up, your engagement goes up too. But on Facebook, like in my group, when we only had a couple hundred people, everyone was active. Mm-hmm. And now that we're at 5,900, that test post about I'm purging the group and getting rid of a lot of people, part of that was to see who's actually engaging in here. And it was like 400 people that were engaging. It's that whole mob mentality. Everybody just goes with it, even if they're like, I don't really know, like, what am I doing here? Like, why am I, it's funny, but Instagram and Facebook have that in common. So, okay, I'm going to take a couple more questions before we dive into, oh my gosh, that's so funny. David made such a good point. All of your engaging people went to SMU. So they went and joined the membership. It's true. All my favorites went to SMU. And so, okay, let's see. Brandy said, how do you tell a story for a business? We'll do a couple more questions and we'll dive into the viral post too.
Perfect. Okay, so this is a really, really interesting thing, because it's so easy for business Instagrams to, I've discovered a lot of business Instagrams their storytelling is basically like showing you their finished product over and over and over and over and over again. So landscaping company, before, after, before, after, before, after, before, after, before, after, which is not uninteresting, because that is what you do. And that is and the sort of emotional appeal of what you do is to see, the kind of like the way you make someone's lawn beautiful, and the way you make someone's house beautiful, the way you make them proud to invite people over. All of that's important. But all those things that I just said are things that happen because your lawn is nice now. A smart landscaping owner is going to go then and find other ways to tell the other parts of that story. So it's, the landscaping owner or company themselves, it's their team, and so getting shots of the team in there and sort of making that part of your story, that we're building a great team, our workers are happy to be here. We're taking a good enough care. I mean, these are all things that raise your trust profile for other people. And then you want pictures of your clients. For God's sake, I don't understand why this doesn't happen. If you come to my house and you work your tail off and my lawn is beautiful, like I'm going to come in and if I'm driving away and letting you work and I come home and see what you've done, it's like, of course you want that on your Instagram. So what I would say is Instagram is a storytelling place for humans, and you want to make your business's story human. Who's been really great at doing that? Dunkin' Donuts back in the day used to have this commercial where like there were these two twins, and like one of them would wake up and say like at like 2 a.m. or something, like, oh, it's time to make the donuts. And then like his brother would come in the room all dressed up and happy, like, I already made the donuts. And like, it's hilarious and human and funny. And of course it's about donuts, but it's about people. And when you catch that, you know what to do with your Instagram. So you want to make your Instagram story as human as you can. Make it about the people who do it. Make it about the customers who receive it. And when you build the community between the people who own/work in the business, like if you're a big corporation, you probably don't want your owners on your Instagram. You want your employees, you want the people who are working and making the stuff happen. And then you want happy customers. And then of course, every once in a while you want to make an offer, and every once in a while you want to show the product. I mean, all those things are part of it, but you want that whole story in there. And then you sort of test and test and test for what the right ratio is. Like when Rachel was at this about 18 months ago, she has like, there's a window of posts where it's like a book and then like a jewelry and then like all these things. And like, the engagements are kind of stagnant. And then she puts her face in and it pops. Yep. And then she puts her face in like 9 times. And then like over 9 times, the numbers go down a little bit. So then she realized, oh, I need other parts in this too. I need to make sure that, my face needs to be here, but I need to have me at work. I need to have, the face of me and a friend, me having a glass of wine. Like I need all these parts. The whole story has to be there. And that's what I think. Mm-hmm. There's no shortcut to telling a good story.
Yeah.
And if you don't think you have that talent, then find the person in your life. Cause I think everybody knows this crazy person who just is like, who just can spin a yarn. Like you just say, hey, tell me what happened last week. And then just go. Yes. And then pay attention to what they're doing and realize all the details they're bringing in and all that stuff, and be like, okay, so how can I do that with my Instagram instead of just presenting people the same stupid picture over and over and over?
I love that. To make it more human. I think it's something a lot of businesses are missing. And then one other thing I do is storyboarding for my clients as well. We're moving into this more now that I'm starting to really dive into psychographics and like the emotions behind everything, but is creating those avatars of who your audience is, because when you have a business, you don't have an attractive character. You don't have that one person who's the face. So you need to make sure that that business represents the emotions, the hobbies, and everything of those 1 to 3 avatars of your ideal customers. Mm-hmm. Okay. Real fast before I ask you this question, are you a Russell Brunson follower at all?
Like, do I follow him? I think everyone does, right?
Do you follow him?
Yeah. So he's not somebody I stalk. And that's in part because, so for me, there's only so many hours in a day. I love Russell Brunson. I think you could learn tons from him. And so I'm not going to say a single bad thing about him. For me, following people who are 90 years ahead of me is totally discouraging. People with, following Gary Vaynerchuk is discouraging. It's not because he's not great. It's because he has 1 million followers on Instagram. I have 600. Like, how do you even begin? Right. So it's in terms of where I put my biggest attention, I put my biggest attention on people who are 2 to 3 steps ahead of me. And Rachel's kind of like the farthest ahead of me of people that I'm investing and learning about right now. And that's precisely because that's about as far as I can really apply what she's doing. If I apply what Gary Vaynerchuk is doing, I don't have any success because he's built the community so he can do things that the rest of us can't do. I mean, and that's what you have to realize. As you gain a community, you get prerogatives that people without community don't have. So you can't just go do what Nathan Chan is doing and get the same results. You have to figure out what he was doing at the beginning. And that's what began the social hacking deal for me was what did Rachel do when she was where I am?
Yep.
When there were 17 people liking her photos, what did she do? And that's what I did.
Oh, that's so cool. I want to highlight that because if you guys didn't hear that, you're going to need to watch the replay and listen to that again, because if you work directly with a high level mentor who's 20 steps ahead of you, you're going to get advice that is going to feel not applicable. And so that was one of the things with SMU. I wanted everything to be applicable for the person I was 18 months ago. And that's the biggest thing. A lot of people lose touch with what got them to where they are today. And people say, jack up the price of SMU to $997 and sell it as a course. And it's like, no, because that person 18 months ago couldn't afford that. And so that doesn't make sense. I don't want to forget about where I came from. But I will tell you guys, if you do big time mentorships, big time those types of things, like when I'm partnering with Russell Brunson, they give ideas that cost $5,000, $10,000, $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be like, oh, it's easy. Just bring in a sales team who can close all your deals for you. It'll only be like $10,000, but it'll save you time. But remember that that's because they've gotten to that level and they've forgotten how to get there, or in a way.
Yeah. So you don't get those people's time when you have 1,000 Instagram followers, right? I mean, part of the reason, like if you were to, part of the reason Rachel, that Russell is interested in Rachel is because A, she's got 20,000 followers, but B, it's clear to anybody who knows what's up that Rachel's star is rising. Like, she's been at this for 18 months and hasn't done nearly the best things she's going to do. So Russell knows that because he knows what it takes to get, like, he's been all the way there. But like, that person's advice and what that person did today is not directly applicable to you in the way that what somebody who has 10,000 or 5,000, most of the social hacks that I'm going to do from now on are people with 4,000 to 5,000 Instagram followers until my community is there with me at 4,000 to 5,000 and is no longer interested in that. Then we'll move to the next steps. Cause we have to learn where you can't learn how to walk from Usain Bolt. You have to learn how to walk from your parents, even if they can't run the 40 in 9 seconds.
I love that. Moshe asked, and if you're not super familiar with this, but he asked, just let me know. This is the same concept as Russell Brunson's attractive character. What criteria can you use to figure out what attributes your attractive character needs to have?
Yes. I'm on my Instagram later today. There will be an experiment in infographics. And what I'm trying to do with that is to figure out how to make infographics that are attractive to the Instagram audience. But one of the things that's going to be in that Instagram is one of the keys to growing your audience and knowing what to post. Cause that's for me and for a lot of people, it's like, what the hell do I put here? Like, I don't even know where to go. Like, I don't know what pictures do I need or whatever. For me, starting and figuring out like what was following people who have my audience's attention. Rachel is one of them. There are lots of others. People who have the attention of the business owners that I want to work with. And then when you find those people, finding out what they're doing and seeing what your audience responds to.
Yes.
And then this is a big temptation at this point, is to then just become the person that they're following already. No good. That person's better than you at it. So then the real hard work of this is, and I don't think there's a way around this. It's gut work. It's soul work. You have to you look at what people are responding to, and then you say, well, what of my story is appealing to somebody who cares about that? And then you start, then you start to build your own your own attractive character. What do I need to say about me? What about my story is going to connect here? I hope that answers the question. I'm not super familiar with that concept, but I think that's what I think it's what I understood you to say.
Okay, so basically it's close to it. So the attractive character is there are two different ways to look at it. It's just kind of in general, the attractive character. I'm going to fly through the rest of the questions so that we can get to what you want to talk about most. But it's basically, Russell's talking about how when you're an attractive character, you attract a community of people who are like, I want something that person has.
Right.
And so his big thing behind it, and I want to just answer this real fast, Moshe, is that you basically take your best traits and magnify those. you aren't highlighting, the worst parts of you. You're highlighting the parts of you that, if you were to meet with your 10 best friends and say, what are the 3 best things about me? Those 3 best things are going to be the characteristics of the attractive character. So if I were to look at myself and try to create an attractive character, it doesn't work, because I'm like, I don't know, sometimes I'm disorganized, it doesn't feel like everything's together. I'm a decent mom. I'm not perfect. That's not an attractive character. From the outside looking in, what are people seeing? It's Rachel is energetic, positive, helpful, etc. So that's where you can find what those attractive character traits are.
Right. And I think just David Coates says my looks, which I agree with. That's a handsome dude. Yes. So, that is not unimportant in a visual medium like Instagram. I mean, this was a big, big thing for me to get over, is realizing, it would be so easy to look at Rachel and be like, well, yeah, she's good looking, so of course. But it's not nearly, everybody has different stuff to work with. Nathan Chan's face is almost never on his Instagram. He's got 1 million followers. You figure out what works for you, what you've got to contribute. Not all of us are as good looking as David, so we're going to have to start with other stuff. But I would say, so to that question of attractive character, know what's good about you. This is tough, because a lot of people, when they're on the start, they just don't have that high of self-esteem. And I've been fortunate in life to be loved by really good people who have kind of just swelled my head with ideas about how great I am. Not everybody has that to go in to start with. And so you've got to find the people whose opinion about you trust. I mean, for a lot of us, like you only really think people are telling you the truth when they're telling you how bad you are. And like, it's hard to hear the good stuff. So, your whole life, your 5 best friends are a focus group, just as Rachel said. Find out, what do you like about me? Like, what's it like to be on the other end of me? And find out the good and the bad. And then go look and see who in the world is responding to people who have that characteristic, right? Like, who's responding to outgoing people? Because not everybody likes outgoing people. I turn a lot of people off because I'm super energetic. But introverts just run and flee in droves from people like me. But knowing who responds to the kind of person you are, and then how to get in front of them, and then that's the sort of technical side of it. But
yeah, I'm gonna say too. If anyone, what I liked that you said in there, one of the many things, was that you said it's not about Rachel being pretty. And I really, really appreciate that, because, their pretty faces are, I don't know what the term is, but there are a lot of pretty faces. It's really easy to be a pretty face on Instagram. But you guys have even seen my ugly pictures that I put up.
David says, no, it isn't. No, it isn't.
No, just kidding. There are no ugly pictures. But I'm going to answer one portion of this, and I think this is our last question. Geraldine asked, how do we avoid the pitfalls of making it sound too fabricated or a bit too polished? And Brandy said, what about being authentic and showing the not so great parts too? I'll just say I'm totally fine with that, just putting it in there occasionally so that you almost keep yourself humble too. Like I put up that picture of me with no makeup last night, and said, because it was representing the day, it was a tough day yesterday. You guys know that. And so I made it through the day, and I put up a picture that wasn't taken yesterday, but it was just representation of how rough that day was. But I let it be little sneak peeks. So what are your thoughts on that, William?
Same. You want to tell a positive story, but there's no story if there's no drama. This is the important thing. First of all, I think a lot of you, let me just say this too. A good story has an enemy, right? And so one of the great things about Rachel's story on Instagram, I have no idea whether this actually lines up with her personal story. It's a weird thing that Instagram can do, is the enemy of Rachel's story is like a grinding, soul-crushing, femininity and beauty-crushing corporate culture that says you can succeed only at the cost of everything that makes you you.
Yep.
And denying that is that enemy is the enemy that Rachel's story, that's her conflict. And beating that involves being you, which means like telling a positive story, but also you know, sometimes when you're a single mother, you know, you're just, I mean, there's this great post on Rachel's Instagram. It's back from a while. I think it said, it's like a graphic, and it says, "Sorry, the house was so messy. I was building an empire." That's it, right? You let people in. You don't want to overshare, but that's just good social boundaries, right? Like, you don't want people to know, like, oh, like, look, my, you know, here's the overdraft notice on my bank account. And like, I mean, that's not anybody's business. Like, when you figure out who your enemy is, you figure out who you've got to fight. And for Instagram, almost all the enemies involved, you can have this if you only stop being you. And so you need to show yourself.
100%. Okay, I'm going to cut off questions here because I want you to dive into the part that I think is so cool. And it's something that I undervalued for a long time. I didn't realize how big it was and how big other people see it as, if that makes sense, until my week with Russell, or my weekend. It wasn't a week, it wasn't a couple of days with Russell Brunson in Inner Circle. Because what I learned there was that other people were like, wait, hold on. You just said I went viral like it was no big deal, because it's become such a part of my story that I'm used to it. But it really is a big deal. So I'd love to hear kind of your take on it. And I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk about this. This for me was so I learned an unbelievable number of things from doing this project on Rachel's Instagram. But this was the one where I was really most excited, I think, because it was maybe like halfway through that I realized, like, maybe almost to the end of the project, I see this post that says, "Learn how I went viral on purpose." And I was like, what? I didn't know. I had no idea. I'm like 2/3 done with her Instagram account, and suddenly I went viral on purpose. And I was like, crap, I didn't see that. So I had to go back and watch a bunch of dates on the posts on Instagram. One day they're going to take that away, and it's all going to be so sad. But so I went back and watched all the dates, and then I went and found the viral posts on Facebook and then in all the news outlets and whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I realized this is huge in terms of like what people can learn. And B, this is exactly the reason that people are going to misunderstand Rachel's success. Because it's so easy to think, oh, you went viral, which is a complete accident. And then everybody followed you after that.
It didn't happen that way. Yeah.
What's that?
It didn't happen that way.
Right. The Facebook community was largely built ahead of that, from what I understand. But then but the thing to say is, if it weren't for certain things that Rachel was doing long in advance of going viral, that post would have just disappeared into space. Because the way you have to think about social networks is, you're not reaching the guy in Russia. You're reaching your friend, and you're reaching their friend who met you once at a party but doesn't really remember, and then you're reaching their friend who doesn't know you at all. And if you don't have a captivating story for those first 3 levels, you're never going viral. Like, you go viral because those first 3 people are bought in.
Yes.
And so if Rachel didn't have a story and an enemy already, that post doesn't go viral. It's not to say, like, if if a UFO invades the US and somebody gets it on their iPhone, that's going viral today. It doesn't matter what, but for this particular post, which is about like Rachel's own, first her own increasing success and her own value of this, what you might call like, small ring values of, like, you know, meeting my husband and eloping and all that stuff. All that stuff comes, all that stuff is worth posting and reposting because Rachel had spent a long time up until then making this story of a woman who is holding on to womanhood as she sees it, in spite of an increasing drive and pressure to let go of it in order to have greater success.
Yes.
Right? So there's a story in advance of that viral post that's already telling that story. And so when she posts it, it's the whole story condensed in one post that people see, and it resonates with this pressure that women feel all over the American workforce. And so of course they see it and they share it with this woman, that woman, this woman. And by the time something has 1,000 shares, the most easy thing in the world to do is to share it again. But it's those first 1,000 that are the most important in the case of going viral. So if you're trying to do that for your own story, I know I can anticipate that what Rachel will tell you in terms of going viral on purpose, but the most important thing is you have to have that story already, because you've got to, those first 3 people who see it, if it's not authentic to them, they're not sharing it.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Okay. So one of the things that is interesting is people have said, like, when are you going to go viral again? And the biggest thing is you have to feel it. You know what I mean? I'm not a brand that has all of the data on all of my followers and, I can do, I don't know. It has to be right, if that makes sense. I've already reached hundreds of thousands of people with the different ads I'm running and with videos and all of that. And that's great. But to go viral again, I'm going to need some time, to make sure that it's something I'm really passionate about, that there's the right, like you said, the drama, the enemy, the everything. But I also don't want to craft it. It needs to be real. And so there hasn't been the right story yet. And I've felt it, it's not time yet.
Yeah. The neat thing is that, your story is your life. So you don't have to go looking for this. It will present itself to you again, because that ring story is going to be repeated through the whole course of any woman's life in actual succeeding in business. Because as women grow and succeed more, the pressure is bigger and bigger and bigger. So now it's the wedding ring. One day somebody's going to say she needs to trade up husbands. And when that happens, that's going to be the story, right? Yes. Or, because that same pressure shows itself in a million ways. Oh, yeah. And if you're not a woman succeeding, part of what I've done is figuring out, okay, I'm not a woman with a small wedding ring. I'm a guy with a small wedding ring. And if a guy has a big wedding ring, he looks like a douche. So what are the pressures that men of my age feel on a regular basis in their attempt to try to be successful? When you figure out that story, then when you've built it, when you've created the necessary infrastructure of people who are already bought in, then that day will come. I'll tell that story and it will go. But you can do it on purpose. It just takes longer than you think.
I think so. Okay, so does anyone have questions about the whole idea of going viral, or what it was that went viral, or what the trigger was? Feel free to ask those questions in the chat now. Do you feel like you, William, have cued in on or honed in on what your message is going to be for it? Or is it still just collecting ideas? Yeah,
I'm running a lot of tests. I do think I see some things, but part of it is dealing with the limitations of my own story also. You've got to know who you are for this to work. And so I'm still sort of figuring a lot of that out for my origin story. I will say that the pressure that all people of about my generation feel is the pressure of our previous generation's disapproval. It's so easy for people of my parents' generation to look at people of our generation and say, our being 35 and under, and say, you're not committed, you don't stick things out, whatever. And so that's becoming part of the enemy of my story, because a lot of my clients are local business owners who are in my parents' generation. So figuring out how to handle that objection in the sales process is teaching me this is a big thing. This is a cultural meme, that might be the sort of thing that's going to be sort of a continuing fight for me. And if so, then I have my enemy. And sort of crafting that to tell the story of millennial, and I'm sort of just on the upper limit of age for millennial, but but to tell the story of that group as something like where the world that we inherited is different from the world we were promised, and we're making that we're doing the best that can be done with that. Like we're gonna, that world has come to us with all kinds of broken promises, and we're gonna succeed anyway. And I think that's kind of the story I'm working out. And if I do that well, I think that's definitely going to connect, and it's going to connect with the in terms of strategy, it's going to connect with the one demographic that advertisers are having such a hard time reaching. So that's where I think I'm going for the moment anyway.
I think that's really cool. Who's Expeditionary Media? I want to say that is that Dustin, or who is that? Or James? I'm not sure who that is. Oh, it's Chris Henry. Okay. He said, get rid of those self-limiting beliefs. You are awesome. I agree 100%. Oh, you're fine. And he said, no one in his family believes in his entrepreneurial endeavors.
Yeah, I get that. Especially so the other sort of part of my story is I grew up in Central Florida, and basically all Central Florida is produce and mining. And both of those industries have been destroyed by the fact that it's cheaper to get all that stuff by imports now. So my part of the country is just like, and doctor's offices. Yeah. For our aging snowbird population. So that part of the country is just economically massively depressed. And when people grow up in that economy over a couple generations, they don't tend to pass on can-do attitudes to their children. So when I first talked with my family, my parents and others about becoming an entrepreneur, that was like, oh, that's a cute hobby. Or even worse, like, why would you waste your time? Get a job. And it's funny because none of them have jobs, because there aren't any jobs over there, but they're telling you to go get a job. I mean, so I think that's, digging that story up and realizing that people are only giving you advice because they love you and they can't see it. If they could see it, they would give you the different advice. So in terms of living with and managing those people, it's like, okay, I realize that, that my sister loves me. She just doesn't see she doesn't see the opportunity there is. And so she's giving me the cautious advice of a sister who doesn't see it, but loves me dearly. And I think if you realize that, it helps it be easier to handle people who don't see your vision and to just continue marching forward, because when you've done it, they will say, oh, we knew you could do it all the time. And it'll feel like they're lying. But what they're really saying is, we never doubted you. We doubted the world you were in.
That's a really good way to look at it. I love that. Geraldine's sad because she has to go, but she'll watch the replay.
Yep. Bye, Geraldine.
Geraldine's awesome. And coming from the other side of the world, she's always traveling, and I could always try to remember where she is. I know she's from the Netherlands sometimes, but I think sometimes she's in the UK. I'm not sure. Let's see what Chris Henry says. Yes, their visions don't align with yours. That's why this is such a great community. Once you have results and proof, you can expand their minds.
Absolutely. That's right. And the way I think about it is my grandchildren will inherit a completely different mindset than I did from my grandparents. But the thing is, that's the best service I can do to my grandparents is to make sure that their great, great, great grandchildren have lives they never dreamed of. Yes. Because they didn't have the worldview to dream of it. And it's one of those things where you realize that I see opportunity that my ancestors and family don't see is part of what it means to say that I've won the lottery. I see that and they don't. And that's part of winning. Having the vision for it at all is winning.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, real fast. I want to be respectful of your time. So there are some questions coming in, but if you have to go because you have a 12 o'clock, you just let me know.
I've got a 12:15, so we can do this.
Okay, let's fly through them really fast. This is gonna be fire round. David's looking for a fire emoji. He can't find one. James says, "What are your thoughts on dopamine and other neurochemicals in relation to what causes something to go viral?"
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's so much stuff out there about hacking the brain, and I'm just not qualified. I'll say this. You make somebody's heart beat faster, and they're going to share it. And that's
Yes.
that's why I say that's why it's so important to have that for those first three levels of people who already believe your story, because you make their heartbeat faster because they already know you.
Yes.
And so, now the fact that like people around me see my growing business, it for them, it's like, yeah, I guess you were right. And so when I tell the story next round, it's easier to believe.
Yes.
And so it starts to connect with aspirations, instead of like, when you see somebody starting a business who's never had a job before, you feel sorry for that person. But when they succeed, then they connect with your aspirations. That's not me, by the way. I've had lots of jobs. I'm just saying, you see the point. Like, it's about believability. And when people believe you, then their hopes are stirred, then their heart beats faster, then they share that post.
Yep, absolutely. Chris also says, "I smoke cannabis all the time. I'm not going to lie. I'm a veteran with PTSD. It boosts my creativity and take action on the ideas that come through my mind." One thing I want to say, there's a very big movement right now with entrepreneurs. I'm not a part of it, and I never will be, but there's a very big movement of people who are doing like higher level drugs like ayahuasca and LSD and stuff, and they're microdosing and taking drugs. I've heard a lot about it from people that I love and respect, and it's big. But I personally am a big fan of what you can create just from the natural dopamine of life, like taking on bigger challenges where you're like, I might fail. I do it every day. But sometimes I take it a little too far, and then it's like, oh my gosh, what did I just take on? But I love that, the thrill of figuring something out and having a big win, and, playing with the numbers and then competing against your own numbers. I personally find that to be one of the highest feelings ever.
Yeah, I think this is one of those places where it's really helpful to talk just a second about being self-aware, like knowing who you are and what makes you tick.
Yes.
I have no desire and never have to do LSD, but even if somebody could convince me into doing it, I'm married and have Southern parents. Like, that's a really quick way to die, is to go trying something like that. So I've got nothing to say about what anybody else wants to do. It's just knowing who you are. If I were a veteran with PTSD, I think a veteran with PTSD has to do what they have to do, and that's the way it is. But for somebody who, I don't have any right to speak to those things. I know who I am, and I know what makes me tick. And I think that's part of what happens in terms of helping yourself get over those mental humps.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I know for me, and then I think we'll call it a day. But for me, one of the things that was really helpful was when as a lot of you guys know, I've been sober for 2 years. And when I stopped drinking completely, that was when I realized, oh my gosh, this is the hardest and best thing ever, because I have to face everything I don't like. I have to face the yuck. I have to deal with it all every single day. There's no numb. There's no turn off. There's no, oh my gosh, people are crazy today. Like, I just need a drink, or 10 or 20. It's like, it doesn't go there. And so that was one of the things that for me, and I recommend this for anyone who it makes sense for. It was weird because suddenly there wasn't anything to turn to. I had to figure it out. I had to deal with it. And I would say that has been a huge part of my success over the last 18 months. Yeah,
that doesn't seem coincidental. Guys, I just want to say thank you so much for letting me be here. Be sure to get in touch. One of the things I'm just immediately and viscerally aware of is that you hear a conversation like this, and it takes a while to process. And then it's like this afternoon, suddenly the question you wish you had asked comes up. I'm happy to be available to you. I gain nothing from holding back. So whatever you want, catch me on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. I'm William L. Glass on everything. So just, find me, ask me questions. I'm probably just going to sort of refer you back to Rachel and make you do what she does. I mean, that's really the only virtue I have to give you right now. I haven't made $20 million this year. What I have is my drive and ability to watch people carefully. And I'll be happy to share with you anything that you have questions about. I'd be happy to tell you.
We all, from everyone in SMU and from me especially, I have to say thank you. This has been one of my favorite conversations ever. I feel like people are going to watch this over and over again because this is amazing, William. Thank you. You do not understand how valuable your insights are. And you and I should probably talk at some point about what it would take, for you to start getting bigger contracts, because you're worth a lot more than you think. 20 million isn't as far off as you think it is.
Yeah, that's super kind.
So, okay, thank you so much. All right, everybody, I will see you inside of SMU. I'm sure we'll be talking about it for days to come. Have such a great day, William. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.